got another day to work on the 818. I had really wanted to put the motor in today so that I could then start hooking it all up and moving towards a start in the next couple of months. But I ordered the wrong type or wrong size power grips, which are the heat shrink clamps for the cooling system. And since you got to get even heat all the way around them, it'd be really hard to do that inside the engine compartment. So I decided to leave the motor sitting there until those come in. Then we'll get the motor in next weekend and start trying to figure out the ECU wiring. I bought the Coach 1 wiring harness, which is a chassis harness, but it doesn't include the motor. So I've got to get the ECU wiring, all of the probe sensors, cam sensors, oxygen sensors, all that. I got to get all that taken out of the main harness. I'd hoped that it would be real easy, that I'd cut loose a bunch of electrical tape and zip ties and the ECU harness would fall right out, but certainly not the case. It's spidered in. So those are the 4 ECU connectors right there. And there's actually 2 harnesses here. This piece on the left appears to possibly be an underhood harness. That looks like the underhood relay. I see the battery in the ground, AC, fans, radiator, things like that. So I think that's the underhood one. I will probably need some components of that. But here's the big one. Like I said, ECU connectors are down there. I've managed to find the ODB2 connector here. And God knows what else I'll need out of this mess. That's the primary fuse box there, so there'll obviously be power from there headed off to the ECU. So I'm going to finish getting the tape, and I'm inside today. As you can tell, I didn't have enough room in the garage to stretch this out. So I'm going to continue getting the tape off and zip ties loose, and I'm going to start trying to spider everything that connects to there out. I did find ECU pinout on the internet, but it wasn't, it was by component and not by pin. So I retyped it so that it would be by pin, connector, and terminal numerically. And it also didn't have wire color, so I'm going to go ahead and put the wire color on here. And then I'll upload this to the good old interwebs so somebody else doesn't have to do the same thing in the future. So, fun with wiring. Alright, well, 8, maybe 10 hours cutting on the harness. It looks worse than when I started. Everything's unwrapped. It's a big rat's nest now. It's everything I've cut out so far. Started with the stuff in yellow. It's airbags. It was easy to get out. And then I started working on getting all the lighting out. So I found the relays for the high beams and low beams. Worked from there, cut all the way back. Then I found the headlight switch, light switch. I cut about 10 inches down from the switch so that I could use that as a pigtail on my new harness, and then spidered back from there forwards to get all the lighting stuff out. I think I've got 80% of what I need to get out, which is about probably a third of the main harness. What I'm focusing on now is trying to get the fuse box out, but keep the relay board. It's a nice relay pack, so I'm trying to figure out how to get the fuse box out, keep the relays, and just replace that fuse box with fuse box from the Coach system. For now, I've left the gauge wiring in. I will, at least for go-karting, I'm going to use the factory gauge. I still hope to swap to LCD gauge once I get it up and running, but that'll be ODB2, so I will probably just leave the wires for the gauge back there in case I ever need to plug the gauges in for troubleshooting or testing. this is just intermediate connectors that go over to the engine bay harness, so I'll have to get to that next, but I gotta finish, I gotta get the fuse box out, get anything that I missed in there cleaned up, and then I'll try and get this stretched out, organized in some manner that I can actually route it, and then I'll move on to the engine bay harness. It's a lot more complicated than I thought it was going to be. I thought pulling the ECU out would be simple. I figured there'd be one plug that basically ran over to the engine and grabbed all the sensors, and another one that ran to the fuel injectors and spark plugs, and then one that ran over to the fuel pump. But it's everywhere. The cruise control is integrated to the ECU. I don't have a separate cruise control module. The fans for the radiator, the fuel pump, it's all triggered out of the ECU. So it's more than an ECU really. It's almost a BCM, a body control module. There was a body control module that I cut out, but it didn't seem to do much other than door locks and windows. So that's fun. Probably at least another 8-10 hour day to get this cleaned up. Probably half that for this. I'd probably do the engine harness in a day. It's going to take me 2 days to do the main harness. So loads of fun. I'll get a half day in tomorrow, maybe a half day in Sunday. I might get this cleaned up this weekend. Family would appreciate it. They like me to get all this stuff out of the movie theater. It's not a room I've got with enough space to stretch out in, so lots of fun. Well, I think I'm finally done cutting wires out of the body harness and the ECU harness. It still looks like a total mess, but about 2/3 of the wires is gone. I've still got to maybe clean up a little bit on the main relay pack there. All this is front engine connector, so all that connects to that, which is what I'll have to diet next. This out here is this relay for the fuel pump and the drive-by-wire system. This all goes out to the engine bay, and then this is ECU connectors and a few engine bay connectors. So it's an absolute spaghetti wired mess right now, but I'm not too worried about that because I'm going to cut pretty much every one of these wires in half to make it the proper length. And when I do that, I'll be able to untangle them and put them together in nice little chunks. So this is going to get balled up and stuffed in a box. I'll do that one next, and then they'll both go in the car so I can start measuring length. Fun stuff. One weekend blown, 3-day weekend blown. I'm just cutting all that wire out, but I finally figured out where everything goes. So more to come.